Bring that joy.
In one word, describe the game's hang-up.
Vibrant. Everyone's kind of getting along, playing games.
I would be underestimating if I gave it any less than a 10, right? I've met some fantastic people here today, so it's a 10.
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm loving it, especially this drink from Court of Cards. Yes, the best drink ever, passion fruit.
I had a lot of fun, honestly. I feel I've been in touch with my inner child, which is something I should do more.
Such a different atmosphere altogether. I don't think I have ever been to such an event earlier.
What's your impression of Builder's Tribe so far?
Builder's Tribe just screams community. It's just for the people.
The way you've managed and organized this event, I'm really impressed because it's something that we haven't done before and we were lacking as a community.
It's a nice community. I love how you came up with the idea to network with a lot of people. Networking, chilling, hanging out, playing cards. I love it. Drinks, especially. I love my drinks.
Community. Coming together. I've met 6 new people today, which is really good, and I'm going to take those meetings further. I'm going to just through games.
It is getting interesting, and I think after today's conversation that I had around the table, there's some interesting subject and plan and project coming up.
This tech community is different in terms of the way networking is being happening. There are these young minds behind it, so we get to learn a lot with these guys.
I've been looking for a community such as this for quite some time.
It's a lovely community actually, and diverse. I love that I met some people who work with as mentors in the community, and it's also fun to see some university students joining, so there's a really diverse, let's say, background of people joining all in all.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Tech Forward Talk. So, my name is Ajiri, as you all know, or if you don't, it's nice to meet you for the first time. All right, so I'm co-founder at Builders Tribe. Builders Tribe is the foremost, most energetic community in the Middle East and Africa. And we're currently based out of Qatar, but check, we're coming to a city near you in 2026. So Tech Forward Talks is our way of making sure that we teach topics to founders that are actually important. So to founders, to tech professionals, and even investors, there's something for everyone. And today we're doing a very interesting topic, but I'm not going to say what it is yet. But please, we have a culture that we currently embody, which is tell us where you're watching live from. So put it in the comments and just say, oh, hi, I'm watching live from here or there, wherever you are in the world. Even if you're on Mars, you're welcome to today's Tech Forward Talk. All right. So remember, this is Builders Tribes YouTube. So please, 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 please do well to hit subscribe and so you can stay updated on all the things that we're doing. Today we have the amazing Jeremiah. Hi, Jeremiah.
Hi, Ajiri. Good evening.
All right. Hi. Okay. All right. We have some amazing people. Eniola says, hi, moving from Lagos, Nigeria. We have people usually that join from everywhere. And so, thank you for coming to today's Tech Forward Talk. The topic is founder-led marketing. Give me a minute. Yes, founder-led marketing, building momentum when you are still small. Right, and Jeremiah here has done this over and over and over again, both for himself and for all the many companies that he has worked with. So I hope you're ready. I have my notes ready and my pen, and I'm going to be taking a lot of notes because I want to learn. There's always something for everyone in these sessions. Yeah. So, hi, Jeremiah.
Hi, Ajiri, once again. Nice to be there.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. So there's something that I always do for every session, and that is to ask a question. And it's a very easy, very simple icebreaker question. So don't
Yeah.
be scared. This question is, what's the most adventurous thing that you've ever done?
Oh, okay. Adventurous, right? I think it was dropping out of like the university in my 40th law, like on the degree. Yes, that was it was very crazy because I had just 1 year to finish and I dropped out. Yeah, I think I was very adventurous and risky.
Wow. What did your parents say about that? Nigerian parents, for that matter.
So interestingly, like my mom wasn't like really phased because she's used to my rebellion side already. My dad has studied, but I'm a lawyer already, so it was one that was like, oh my god, I'm disappointed in. And me, they were like, till date, I've not still like had the last of it, but yeah.
It's all right, but now you're like big time marketing, B2B SaaS marketing manager, and like I think that's equally great.
But then again, I mean, African parents now they like the prestige that come with like the traditional like roles. So
Mhm.
I just don't understand what I'm even doing. So there's that.
All right. So thank you for joining us today. We have Abdallah Badra from Doha and Maniti watching live from Nigeria. Great. Nigeria and Doha. Great, 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 great. So I have a couple of questions that I'm going to ask you, and then I am going to take questions from the audience. So if you came with your questions, do well to put them in the chat when we request for them, or you can put them up right about now. So we can use them on a rolling basis. First come, first serve. If the question is not already answered during the session. All right. The first question we have today is, for founders with no marketing team, where should they focus their first 30 days of founder led marketing?
Mm. All right. So for the first 30 days, I think three things founders should do. I'm going to like narrow it to three things, and I call it the PC. It's not a framework per se, but I just like to label it to these things just to make it easier for like the audience to grasp. So C for clarity. So you need to have clarity on the narrative you're trying to get out there, right? I think most founders, especially of early stage startups with no marketing resource or budget, a mistake most of them make is they don't have a core. I mean, most of them know the problems they want to solve. They know what motivated them to like start the business, but at the center of it, there's no like core story. There's no core narrative, because that narrative is what you then build out your marketing assets, your positioning from. Right now, how do you clarify your narrative and your core storyline? The more question you need to ask yourself is, what problem am I solving, right? And second thing you need to ask yourself is, who specifically feels the pain that I'm trying to solve? Who feels it the most, right? That points you to customers, right? And the last question to help you figure out your narrative is, okay, why am I uniquely positioned to solve this problem? Right now, this three fold clarity phase is important, because when you know the problem you want to solve, you won't be distracted, right? Because a reason why most founder-led marketing tactics fail is because most founders are reactive than proactive, and that proactivity is not like, oh, they don't want to be proactive or anything, but it's more of not having like an inner core guiding them. And that's what clarity does for you, because when what you're trying to solve, who you're trying to solve it for, and why everything becomes easier, right? So that's like the first C. Then P is proximity to customers. Now, remember, I just said you need to also like identify who that pinpoint is most pressing for. That's your target audience. Now, right? When you know your target audience, you need to speak to them, right? And speaking to them is where you get to know their pain points better from their angle. Because it's one thing for you to experience an issue, and it's another for you to understand it from the point of view of those you're trying to solve. This is very important because it helps you solve the blind spots that you as a founder might have. Sometimes founders are very like obsessed with solving a problem. They want to solve it their way, right? And like Steve Jobs once said, sometimes customers don't know what's good for them. But at the end of the day, especially your early stage startup, you have to build credibility by doing things that speaks to your customers, right? So you understand their language as well, because that will help you approach marketing better, and also solutions that they've had to solve that problem, to understand where you can come in better. Now that's P, proximity to customers. Now C is consistency. This is where you go all in. So you've spoken to customers, you've understood their psychographics, the demographics, the buying behavior, the current solutions, their blockers. Now where do they hang out? You have found this out, while trying to understand your customers better, while speaking to them, right? Now it's time to go all in. If you find out that your customers or your target customers mostly hang out on LinkedIn, I would expect to be consistent on LinkedIn, like Ajiri and Michael, are. If your founders are more on X, that's Twitter, I would expect to be like Elon Musk. You need to be, speaking to them regularly, be laid back, right? If you find out that they are more of like real life people hanging out in, let's say what do they call this thing, workspaces, right? Go there, hang out with them, right? Where they hang out is what matters the most, not what is looking cool at the moment, right? So those are like the three things I would advise founders to do in the first 30 days. Have clarity on your narrative, talk to customers, and go all in once you figure this out.
All right, thank you for that perspective. Know who your customers are and go to where they are. All right, cool, cool, cool. We're moving on to the next question. But before we do that, we have some new people that have joined us. We have Olu Samuel from Budapest. And sorry, we have Ope Yemi from Ibadan, Nigeria. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. So now we're moving on to the next question. And the next question is, what are the most common mistakes that early stage founders make when trying to market their products themselves?
Hmm. I mean, I could write an entire thesis on this, but I'll try to be brief. I think one of the major issues I see with like early stage founders, especially when they don't have a marketing team, is one trying to speak like a marketer, and then like the everyday marketer, um, the corporate marketer. So this is where you see things like reversionalizing on their website, all in one platform, industry leading solution, essentially big words that sound like they mean something. But when you really like examine them and say, what does this even mean? You're like, oh, it's just a bunch of corporate jargon, right? And so that's something I see. And also the fact that, we have to consider the background of most of these founders, right? Usually, right, especially if it's a solo founder, most founders are either from a marketing or sales, marketing or sales background, or they are from engineering. Now, those that are from engineering, that's the mistake most of them tend to make. Now, even those that came from sales or marketing, you would think that they should know better, right? But some of them, get into the sexy allure of corporate speak, that they start like advertising their products that way, and they wonder why they're not getting customers. Bro, sis, no one understand what you're talking about. You're speaking in corporate lingo. Another problem I see is doing everything at once. Now, the startup world is very agile, very fast paced, as it should be, because that's what leads to innovation, right? Being able to be nimble and solve problems at a go. However, that can affect you if you bring that type of mindset to marketing, especially when you're like a founder trying to do marketing. Because remember, you're doing fundraising as well. You're trying to go the VC route or the private equity route. You're doing hiring as well because you still have a lean team, right? You're doing market positioning and all. You're doing competitive research. There's a lot going on. So when you now try to also do so much in marketing, trying to do every channel at once. Oh, TikTok is trending today. Oh, we should be on TikTok. Oh, is Instagram today. It just makes you very diluted in your approach and doesn't lead to efficient results. Then another problem I see is publishing without listening, right? Just because ChatGPT told you to write a blog on let's say a pain point that it's relevant to your customer, but because ChatGPT told you to write it doesn't mean you should. First of all, have you listened to your audience? Of all the problems you've heard them say or you've heard them express to you, which of them is the most pressing? Is it the one that you believe is important, or the one your customers or your target customers are facing like the most issues with? That's what should guide you. And a lot of founders don't do this. Then another thing I see, and this is a major product marketing problem, it is positioning on features rather than pain points. Now I understand that, or benefits. I understand that if you're a founder, you've put so much effort and sweat into that product and you believe it's the best thing since sliced bread, right? However, you have to understand that your customers care about how you're gonna solve the problem and what result is leading to. That's the most important thing. No one cares or gives two hoots about the fact that your product is AI powered. In fact, I don't feel like you're trying to like do an AI product lately. You should emphasize less on the AI feature and more on the time saving benefits, on the cost saving benefits. Always emphasize what your customers are going to get from using your product, not the features. No one cares about the features, I promise you. What everyone cares about is how it's going to make their day better, their work better, or their life better in general. And lastly, I think a major issue most founders have, or mistakes when it comes to marketing themselves, is they try to be perfect, right? Especially if they have like eye taste. So you're a founder, you are so ambitious, and so you believe that even though you're a solo marketing team, you should still achieve the kind of marketing that Series A companies have, Series C companies have, Series D companies have. Now, that is very ambitious in its right, and it's not a bad thing. However, you have to be realistic to yourself, because if you're trying to achieve at scale when you don't have enough resources, you'll be burnt in the long run, right? So instead, optimize for things that are natural to you. Optimize for things that are low effort, high reward before you do things that are really high effort. So those are the mistakes I see most founders making.
All right, that's a very great perspective. I see everything coming back and tying into listening to
Yeah.
your customers, right? That's great. That's something we also always emphasize in product. And yeah, that's a really great perspective. I have a follow-up question. And my question is, can you give us a one example of, you talked about simplifying the jargon. So can you give us one example, either something you've used before or something you've seen and what it could be? So instead of saying this, you could say this. So like practical examples that our audience can take away today.
In terms of what exactly is it, the pain points versus features points?
Yeah, so like how the founders should talk about their product.
Okay, okay, makes sense. I'll give a good example. We launched an AI product at my previous company, Remote Pass, and it was, I think, the first conversational AI feature in the HR tech space, right? And one thing we did for the tagline, because usually when most of our companies are launching this product, they do first XYZ to do this one. And we did that too. We used the pioneer approach. However, our tagline was get answers that matter in seconds, not hours. Now, that was very important because we seen from, at least from what the product team was seeing from product usage, that some of our ICPs, ID customer profiles of users, were always stuck with trying to get useful information, whereas the founder trying to understand cost per head when it comes to IRA, or how it has increased over time, or is the HR trying to understand who has taken leave at this period, who has not taken leave, who is at the risk of burnout. It tends to be really like cumbersome and takes a lot of time. Now, what if there was an AI feature that can give you an answer to this in a sec, not minutes, under 60 seconds? And that was like the benefit we anchored on. And it was very interesting when I was crafting this messaging house with my manager at the time, because I had initially thought, oh, we doing the pioneer approach will make more sense. But as we spoke to customers, we did our research in the ideation stage and the beta testing, we realized that, oh, it would make sense to anchor our answer, our feature, our positioning statements on the benefits. And that did numbers, because when we launched for the beta stage, I think we had over we beat our projection by, I think, 50% or thereabouts. And that was just because of that singular change we made, right? The same applies to even like Apple, right? You look at Apple, Apple does not sell the fact that our phone is slim to you, or the fact that iOS is sexy. What they sell to you is simplicity. What they sell to you is the ability of the phone to fit into your day without causing major change. And that's why their devices are interconnected. So if you're using an Apple Watch, you can connect it to your phone, you can connect it to your Mac, you can receive calls on all of them at once, right? That is connectivity, right, at its core. But they're not preaching connectivity to you in order for you to get the product. They're preaching simplicity that doesn't like ruin your normal workflow. So yeah, those are examples I can think of from my perspective and from a popular brand. You're muted, Ajiri.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was saying that's amazing. And thank you for giving that very specific example. All right, so we're
Yeah.
moving on to the next question now. And this question says, how can founders use storytelling to gain early traction, especially when the product is not fully mature?
Mm, all right. Hmm. Okay, this one is very dicey, right? But I would say, and I say it's dicey because what I want to say is, again, dicey. But I would say vulnerability, right? I think the best founders I know, and I think have become really popular, are those that are not afraid to be vulnerable with the general public including their audience, right? So your product is not yet mature. In fact, I think the best founders or the best marketing stories are from product that are not yet scaled, are from product that are in their early stages. And this is because this is the time you're most creative. Because when you have limited resources, you're thinking, oh, how can I make the best use of these resources, and get the best results? And that forces you to be very creative, right? So what you can do when you're at that stage is to be very vulnerable. So share with the general public and your audience, oh, what problem triggered your product idea, right? And the challenges you're facing so far, what you're learning in real time. I think this is something like, even I don't mean to like piggyback on this again, but I think this is something you and Michael do well. I think you even did it. I think we worked on this together for the recent event you did. So talk about like what you're facing, challenges you're facing, mistakes you've made, mistakes you're learning, mistakes you're relearning, and also speak on your customers. Share their stories. Nothing people love more than talking about them. Now imagine doing that scale. Let's say you've gotten like your first five beta users, and they have quite interesting product. Let's say you're a B2B company, right? And your first five users are from companies that are also very interesting. You can do a spotlight on your social media channel. What really drew you to them, or what made them, even like want to use your product, and talk about how what you've learned from them being your customers, or just again spotlight your customers, make them feel like they matter, whether it's in an in-app newsletter, or product newsletter, or it's social media that's external, or it's even co-marketing. Ensure that your customers feel like they belong to a sort of fandom. Trust me, it works, particularly when you don't have many customers yet, because those customers that you really cherish, and make them feel like you cherish them via spotlighting, become power users, who then create a network effect that now takes your product from immaturity to maturity. Then lastly, and this is connected to the first point I make, always, okay, there are not many Nigerians here, so I can't say this, but there's a popular actress in Nigeria. Her name is Funke Akindele. She's producing a movie called Behind the Scenes. So be like Funke Akindele and show behind the scenes of your startup, right? You can do a day in the life of me as a founder. You can do a day in the life of me and my product team. Just humanize your brand and do it from a place of raw honesty, while still being like very cautious not to like overshare, of course. But yeah, share behind the scenes. Let people know the experiments you're making. It will make people to root for you better when they feel like they're following you on a journey, rather than you trying to fake it like you've made it when your product is still very immature. But yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing. You see, this storytelling, I knew it to be a problem. There are lots of questions here, so I think let's take Mani's question. Mani says, for founders who aren't naturally good at public storytelling or visibility, what's the best way to show up authentically without forcing it?
So first of all, I don't think um storytelling is not something anyone can build or master. The truth is, well, about strength, and that's really true. But and I'm going to like give two instances, right? So I'm first focusing on if you're a solo founder. So if you're a solo founder, you don't have a co-founder, and you're not naturally a good storyteller, what I would say is develop it. And there are different ways to do so. Number one is Toastmasters. There are Toastmasters in every country, right? Okay, I don't know if it's in every country, but in most countries there are Toastmasters, right? So try to join a Toastmasters club, or anything that forces you to do public speaking. Now, initially, trust me, you'll be terrified, mortified even, right? But it's like a muscle. It's like going to the gym, right? I feel very skinny. I'm still skinny, but over time, I've gained like some muscles and tonality in my body, and that's because I go to the gym repeatedly. The same with many artists you even know. Some musicians were not like good at first, like Arya Star, a popular Nigerian artist. I was in touch with her. She was like, she wasn't really good at singing at first. She was good, but she had to develop her vocals. The same as popular, legends like Michael Jackson, Beyonce. You might be in all of the talents, but most of what they had was God given, yes, but they developed over time, right? So I don't think storytelling is not what you cannot develop, right? Now, how do you now show up without forcing it while still retaining your authenticity? I also tell stories that are true to you, And I'll give my instance. On LinkedIn, a lot of people have mentioned that, oh, your LinkedIn, how do you find it easy to be consistent? You're always sharing stories that resonate, blah, blah, blah. The truth is, I don't share what's not my experience. If you go to my LinkedIn, I'm mostly sharing what has happened to me, no matter how insignificant. But I manage to because the truth is, there's a lesson in everything. Even the most insignificant things that don't have lesson, there's a lesson there, right? So try to break your life into micro moments that you can use to, draw an analogy that makes sense to your audience. For instance, if you're trying to fundraise and you run into the issue of, not getting money because you're not like from an Ivy League or something. That's a very good story to share on LinkedIn about how, some talents like yourself are overlooked because you don't have the Ivy League, but how you're still very certain that you make it because you're building an excellent product, blah blah blah. Trust me, that product will move a lot of people because it establishes resonance, right? Now, it doesn't paint you as a hero of the story or as necessarily a victim. It just shows that you're very self-aware of the issue that people like you face and what you're doing to actively overcome it. That makes people drawn to you because they can sense honesty and authenticity from you, right? Now, you're not saying, oh my God, guys, I'm in trouble, because in sharing your story, you're saying the thing you're actively doing to overcome it. So that approach is what you should do. Tell your story as honestly, but don't come from a victim mindset. And but more importantly, just tell stories over and over again. And the last thing I'll say is, the more you tell stories, the more it becomes natural to you, right? And also, engagement is your best teacher, right? So always pay attention to what stories of yours do well the most, which flop. That tells you something. So the ones that flop, you should not, over double down on them. You should maybe tweak your messaging and tell a varying story in another variant, or drop it entirely. And the ones that I've seen do well, tell them more until they make you, in quotes, become very successful. And now this is for if you're a solo founder. Now, if you have a co-founder, I would say split this according to your strength. So if you are not as well versed in storytelling as your second founder or third founder, co-founder, I would say focus on what's your strength. If your strength is engineering, focus on that. But still build your public speaking skills, because you don't want to be solely dependent on another founder that when they are not available, being held to ransom, right? So that's what I would say. Develop storytelling skills, be as authentic as you can be, and that's what I can say, to be honest.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Very important. I'm personally a Toastmaster, and I can tell you it's very, very useful. All right, so our next question is around credibility. So, what are the practical ways to create credibility and trust fast, especially if you're an unknown founder in a competitive market? It's your first time, being a founder. What's the practical way to create credibility and trust fast?
Hmm. I would say, and this, okay, I don't want to do this again. I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to piggyback on Ajiri and Michael's story. And I'm doing this because I think that's the closest story I have. I'll share other examples, but I really found you two story inspiring because I don't know if everyone knows, but Ajiri and Michael moved to Qatar. It's not been up to 3 years, if I'm correct, since they moved to Qatar, and they've done such amazing work in a short while. Because the truth is, anything less than 5 years or a decade is a short while. It might look long in the day to day, but in the grand scheme of things, it's very short. So they've done such amazing work, and you can't do such work without gaining credibility. Now, what's the word credibility? It's essentially trust, right? You have a reputation that people can vouch for, right? You are someone that when you're not in the room, people can say, oh, I trust XYZ, he will deliver, right? Now, to piggyback on Ajiri and Michael's story, one thing I can see from at least an external perspective is that I think event attendance really goes a long way, right? Now, online networking is very good. Don't get me wrong, right? It's very good, particularly in an unknown market. It's a way to establish a global footprint. But I would say in your own market, try to establish real life connections as well, right? And I say this because I don't think there's any market that, except for maybe you are in a place that is being under like terrorist attack, and that's a sad thing, and or you're just like flagged as a terrorist base, I don't think there are that many markets that are so unknown that you can't make it from there, right? So the first thing I would say is in your own market, try to establish credibility. And this is because there are multinational venture firms, partners that always explore even like developing countries, right? And most times when they come to the developing countries, those they seek first are those that already know in those home countries. It's not, I mean, yes, they also like, connections, people that they know and blah blah blah. But if you're already really known in your country, even those that have connections will vouch for you that, oh, this person, let's recommend them, right? So I'll say that one of the ways to build credibility fast is, to be very honest, attend events, and not just attend events, right? Attend events where you meet prospective like collaborators, whether it's prospective hires that work for you, or it's even like investors, or it's even partners, or it's even like ecosystem, participant. Try to be visible. Visibility is currency, right? Now, don't be visible without depth. I think this is where a lot of founders get it wrong, right? Especially like in unknown markets. Because the truth is, if you're from an unknown market or a very competitive one, the stacks are already, the odds are already stacked against your favor, right? So you have to ensure that, okay, when I now become really visible and I'm being like, you know, given opportunities, I don't waste the opportunity, because unlike a white person or someone that is from a privileged background or someone that is from like, amazing countries like the US, where at least things work for the most part, you don't have that privilege, right? So we're trying to build credibility by attending events, by participating like, ecosystem activities, by putting yourself out there online, offline, by being very valuable, giving, and not asking every time like a parasite, right? Also ensure that your product, whatever you're building, has depth. And more importantly, ensure that you have integrity. I think most times we focus more on credibility, popularity, fame than actual depth and actual like character. I think those should be like the most paramount to you, to be very honest. The product you're building, in the words of Naval, skip the dinner parties, skip the ethnotical event, and focus on building what's right. The network will come to you. But I will say that don't really follow that advice. You're not from a rich country, sure. Put yourself out there, but more importantly, focus on building your product to its world class and you're undeniable. Yeah. And also, I think another thing that works lastly is contributing to industry articles. So there are a lot of articles that constantly look for experts to contribute to them. This HARO, this Help a B2B writer, contribute on this platform, reach out to journalists, share your story, and before you know it, when people search your name on Google, they'll be seeing impressive things, and that already builds credibility. And when they're not seeing you in real life, there's already that like pre-existing clout that can then leverage in real life and form long-lasting relationships.
I've written down the articles one because I'm actually planning to like contribute to more articles and more things. So thank you very much for that perspective. I would like to remind our live audience, please send in your questions, more and more questions, so we can stack them up as we go. So I have one main final questions. I have other questions, but asking them will basically be dependent on how many questions we have from the audience. So my final question, I hope, today is, how can founders measure whether their early stage marketing efforts are actually working?
Mm, I think it depends, and this is where strategy comes in, and this is where having a holistic framework comes in, right? And I think that's something that I didn't really touch on earlier, and my bad. uh Marketing at the end of the day is really just, why marketing is on heart in itself, the practice. I really think marketing is at the end of the day very scientific, right? Where you have your hypothesis that, oh, if I do founder-led marketing, for instance, in this case, it will lead to more customers, it will lead to better results, XYZ, XYZ, right? Now, you then do your experiment, whether that is industry contribution, whether that is sharing your story on LinkedIn, wherever your audience hang out, doing it repeatedly, right? Then you then see if your hypothesis can be proven into a theory or disproved, right? That's you being a scientist here, right? And the same applies if you're trying to know if it's working or not, especially if you don't have like enough data, right? So before you even start doing founder-led marketing, whether that's achieving clarity, proximity to customers and being consistent, you have to really know what is what are the things I want to achieve from going all in with marketing as a founder, right? Do I want more users, which I think is the most paramount thing, to be honest, right? Do I want a kind of cult following around my product, right? um do I want virality that leads to conversion? Do I want uh interest in my product? Because it's one thing for you to have like users, and it's one thing for you to have interest in the product, right? These are different stratas, and you should prioritize them in order of importance, then focus on the top three. Because the truth is, if you try to focus on every like um outcome at once, you achieve nothing. So I always advise focus on your best three outcomes. But the truth is, for instance, we focus on generating users, generating interest, and generating a cult following around your product. Trust me, the other ones are byproduct of what will happen. By default, you have fame, right? If that was what you're looking for. By default, you have people trusting you and believing you have credibility, right? So that's the first thing I think you need to do to even measure if what they're doing is working in the first place, right? And each of these goals should have what we call metrics and KPIs, key performance indicators, right? Now, when you're now implementing, I always advise you have, maybe bi-weekly, every other 2 weeks, or monthly check-ins, right? With yourself, or if you are lucky enough have a team, check in with the team to understand, okay, we've set these goals, right? We've set these KPIs. How did you measure against them? This post-mortem activity is very important because it makes you slow down and investigate what you're doing right and what you're not doing right, right? So yeah, that's what I would just say. Look for directional signals and always sit with data, right? Data set against the goals you've highlighted in the beginning. So I can't give you like a one size fits approach because that would be very dangerous and biased. But I'll say always have goals you want to achieve in the first place, then measure against those goals, right? And lastly, I would say this, right? If you're not so familiar, right, with even like the KPIs, that are best for your goals, I'll say consult, right? So if you have marketers as friends, let's say you can't I have marketers right now. If you have marketers as friends, set up a call with them. And some marketers are even very like generous to up on calls on LinkedIn, on professional platforms, and get them to understand what you're trying to achieve and let them advise you on what goals to set. And life has become very easy. Ask ChatGPT with a very good prompt, of course. But yeah.
Ask ChatGPT with a good prompt. Please tell us what tell us what a sample prompt could be, to help get better results.
Okay, so if I was going to ask, I'll just use my me as an example. If I'm going to ask ChatGPT to give me KPIs and for my what's it called, goals as a solo founder trying marketing, what I'll just say is, I will first attach, because you can attach files in ChatGPT, at least for Pro. I don't know if the free one can, right? Attach where I'd written my goals and give it context. I am, obviously it will know my name already, but I'll just like give a proper introduction if it's a new chat, right? I am Jeremiah, founder of XYZ, right? I'm attempting founder-led marketing, and I've highlighted the goals for it in the attached document. Now, I'm not sure what metrics and KPIs to set to measure my success against. This is because I don't have an in-depth marketing background, right? Now, assume you are a marketing expert with over 2 decades of experience and recommend what KPIs and metrics to set. Now, what you've done for the LLM, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, is you've established context, right? And that guides it because you have context in form of the document, the goals, context in form of your understanding level. And the understanding level is very important because When you tell ChatGPT your level of understanding, it guides how it answers you, right? Rather than it's just giving like vague answers or generic information, right? So when you do that, based on what it tells you, you can refine further. For instance, if you're not convinced by the KPIs, you can say, "Oh, I don't think this is good enough. I think XYZ is missing," right? Or and you can show your friends that in marketing, how that's very like good, right? Or you can even like Google still exists, by the way, guys. Google still exists. I know that we're all using ChatGPT these days, but Google still exists. And if you are doing something that is not in your domain, right, I think it's very important to like cross-check facts because these things tend to hallucinate, right? So if you're not convinced, try to check Google. For instance, if it gives you a KPI of organic traffic, organic sessions, for instance, and you're not really sure what that means, ask Google for the meaning. Then cross-check what ChatGPT is telling you. Do you understand? And more importantly, it's important for you to have tools that will make these KPIs make sense to you. For instance, if ChatGPT is telling to measure um, referrals from LinkedIn, for instance, where you want to be doing storytelling, that is referrals that bring traffic from LinkedIn to your website, right? You need something like Google Analytics to do that, right? So you need to also set up tools that will make sure that for every KPIs you're measuring against, you can accurately track them and not just do them based on vibes. So yeah, that's how we approach the prompting and also other factors that can lead to better data measurement.
Thank you very much for sharing. The comment section is on fire, by the way. So let me show
Oh,
you a couple of things. Like people are literally just like putting things out, you know, lots and lots everywhere. Very engaging. Yeah. So
right.
we have one question from Nishola Yaps, and it says, "How do you stay visible as a founder without overselling yourself?"
Hmm. First of brilliant question. I think it's a great question. And overselling yourself. I think overselling yourself is very cringe. I saw it's just very funny because I'm very active on LinkedIn, but I kind of loathe the platform sometimes because I see some people doing very cringe things where it's giving pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me, right? I think that's a dangerous like slope. Because while you're trying to be visible, you don't want to also risk being that kind of person, right? Now, how can you ensure you're not that kind of person? I think at the end of the day, everything has to boil down with moderation, right? Um, yes, moderation. So while trying to tell your story, how are you telling the story, right? Now, if you're telling the story and every story of yours you're sharing is, oh, check out my product. My brother and sister, I have news for you. You're overselling yourself, right? So you should have, in as much as you're trying to get eyeballs and mind share for your product, understand that the best stories are not salesy. The best stories are very raw and organic, right? And the more, and we live in a world where everybody's being sold to. If you're on TikTok now, after watching the video, you're seeing an ad. If you're on X, you've seen an ad. Instagram, you've seen an ad. In fact, they're introducing ads to ChatGPT as well. So we are all inundated with ads at every angle, right? Now, what this means is the average person does not have patience for salesy content, right? So that means if you want to be visible, do it with utmost authenticity and being very organic. Now, what do I mean? You sharing a story about the behind the scenes of your company does not mean that you should not include the city of, oh, check out my company. Now I understand that sometimes post goes really viral and you have to attach a link under. But I promise you, the people that have built companies that are lasting, right, do so with interesting marketing tactics, right? They do so with tactics that command attention and also picks their target audience curiosity. It's not by shouting, "Oh, guys, the more you're telling people to do something, the less they're likely to do it." Because people don't like being told what to do. So, what I would expect from a founder that is serious about getting conversion is to also map out the kind of content you're trying to create, right? Now, not all content should just be based on your story. Oh, we're struggling. Oh, behind the scenes. Sometimes tell stories that, like I said earlier, customer stories. Now, if you tell customer stories, you're more likely to convert because yes, you're telling a story, but the CTA of check out our product, or instead of checking our product, oh, you can also be like XYZ, send a DM to find out, or book a demo now, or speak to an expert. You're telling the story already. That's made the target audience see themselves as potentially using your product, because the person that you've told their story about, like that, let's say the user you told their story, feels very like similar to them in terms of their challenges. They're already saying that, oh, maybe I should try this person's product. You can see that you're not even like trying to oversell. You're just telling like a customer story as authentic as you can, and you're drawing other people. So that's how I think you should approach marketing without overselling yourself as a founder. So map out the different kind of content you're creating. On some days you create customer stories. On some days it's behind the scenes. On some days is your personal story, your motivation. On some days it's interesting marketing tactic. Let's say you've launched a product now, or a new feature. Instead of doing the normal launch video, you're being very interesting and novel. Let's say you like do a comic book series now, right, that tells story of a typical person experiencing an issue that your product solves. That's interesting. That makes people want to use your product. Instead of saying, guys, we just launched something, come and try it, no one gives a hoot, right? So yeah, that's what I would advise. I think I rambled here a bit, but yeah, I'm very passionate about this particular subject.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. I was just laughing. It just made me start thinking about if I've been cringe recently. But yeah, yeah, I'm going to implement this a little more, a lot more. But yeah,
Mhm.
let's also like do the flip side. So how do you now sell properly? So you've told us what not to do. So what should we do instead?
In terms of like sales, right?
Yes.
To be very honest, sales is a tricky one because there are sometimes you just need to do code sales, right? You need to just be direct, and that's where um, code pitching works. However, the best relationships come from warm nurturing, right? Where you build relationship over time. So I like to tell founders that I work with or consult with is think of marketing like you're going on a date, or you're on Tinder or a dating app. Now, if you join a dating app, you match with someone, you know, they look attractive to you, you look attractive to them. You don't just say, oh, hey, I'm coming to pick you now for a date. Get ready without no prior information. You get it gradually, right? Now you also go on dates. And if the conversation is really, really nice, you move to other stages like getting to know each other better. You don't just start saying, I want to marry you immediately. That's a red flag, right? You also ease into it. From first a relationship to courtship to marriage, right? The same applies to sales. The same applies to trying to get customers. You don't like, I mean, code pitching works, right? But it's a numbers game. And as a founder with limited resources, you don't want to spend most of your time doing things that take time, which is code pitching, because code pitching will require you to send like maybe like 100 emails in a week. Then maybe one or two will answer you. Even that one or two, you're not really sure if it will lead to like a meaningful conversion or an SQL turn into a paying customers, right? So I would say if you're trying to approach sales as a founder or conversion, I would say think a long time, and it's very dicey. Think long term, right? Now, if you don't have the resources, hire salespeople that do that job wholeheartedly, and that's what they're doing. They're doing the code pitching. But even now, if you look at the likes of Remote, the company, if you look at the likes of Deal and Co, or even like HubSpot, even that salespeople now are becoming storytellers. You can look at the average LinkedIn profile of an account executive in a big tech company, in a SaaS company, an e-commerce platform. The ones that are very effective are those that just tell stories. Telling stories that you sometimes wonder, what does this have to do with like their audience, right? But that's because people like people, and nobody want to be sold to, like I said earlier, right? So even like salespeople now are now doing a warm nurturing approach. Of course, they're very like strategic, right? But they're also doing a warm nurturing approach. Now, you can niche this right into a sequence, right? Now, there's something called like an email nurturing sequence, right? So let's say, so you're going to have like different touch points for this. So let's say you want to generate interest in your new feature that says, let's say it's what product can I use? Let's say it's a let's say you're a marketer. Let me use myself as an example, right? And you have like a marketing tool that's going to feature like an AI product, blah blah blah, that automatically audits your content for you without you doing the ad work, right? And you want to get customers for this fast, right? I know you don't have the time to be doing story every time because they love this to focus on. What you can do is create a lead magnet, create a resource around the core problem you've solved, right? Now, once you now create that product, house it, right? And use it to collect email addresses, information that gives you insight. Because what you now do is on the for submission form, you ask questions that qualify what we call leads, right? You then now build out an email sequence that still takes sign-ups, those that have signed up, subscribers on a journey, but does so without feeling forceful. But you're still trying to make sales. You're still trying to like sell to them, but you're doing it in a way that feels authentic. For instance, in the first email, you can talk about, you can share maybe a particular section of the resource that they might have overlooked if they've not used it yet, or you share a breakdown about how to use it. Then in the next email, you're getting more direct. Obviously, nobody will have interest. Some won't subscribe. Some will, cuss you out and then report it to spam. Some will name open your email for months. However, you're more likely to get people that turn to paying customers than you just sending code pitches because of what you've established. You've established what we call problem awareness by creating a resource that can solve that issue. And then download already means that, oh, they're aware that they have a problem and they're actively looking for a solution. You're not pitching yourself as a solution provider, but doing it in a way that is altruistic, right? That is you offering value because you're offering advice, you're offering resources, and making them feel seen, right? Now, like I said, it won't work for everybody, but what will you do? It will make sure you have at least 2 customers that would then become power users if you do like the product right. So that's one way I think can approach selling. Create resources, still anchor it on giving, still anchor it on value, right? But be very strategic. That's one thing I've seen work for me, like of my clients.
All right, that's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've come to the end. I've come to the end today. Please, if you want to know more and do more, you can definitely connect with Jeremiah on LinkedIn at Jeremiah Ajayi. And yeah, you can ask him more questions and if you have any. So thank you very much, Jeremiah, for joining us today. So many gems. I've written down so much. My brain is already, going in
Yeah.
different directions for things that I'm going to implement on my end, on my personal brand. So thank you very much. And for now. Okay, thank you for staying to the end today. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all our socials at Builders Tribe HQ. Builders Tribe HQ. And you can visit our website at builderstribe.xyz to learn more about us. Okay, so thank you for coming to Founder-Led Marketing, Building Momentum When You're Small. See you next month, last Friday, 7 p.m. Qatar time, GMT +3. Bye for now.